I'm joined now by Delic Corporation founder, Jackee Stang. Jackee, welcome.
Hi.
Jackee, let's start with a quick overview. What does Delic Corp do?
Delic Corp is the first ever psychedelic wellness corporation aimed at demystifying the psychedelic stigmas and creating a place for knowledge and public education about the safety and efficacy of psychedelic substances to help people potentially live happier lives.
Wow, well, I support that 100%. I like to think that my own mental well-being is a direct outcome of a long and very effusive career in psychedelics. But tell me specifically, what psychedelics are you referring to?
That's a good question. The industry that isn't quite an industry yet, but is, as you know, forming, which is why we're talking right now, hasn't really agreed on exactly what is included with the word psychedelics. So for the purposes of this interview, we're talking about ethnogenic plants that create hallucinogenic effects for humans. Obviously, the most popular ones being currently psilocybin, MDMA, LSD, DMT, ayahuasca, peyote, San Pedro, ketamine, which of course is legal across North America in many parts, ibogaine. What's interesting is that not all of these substances create hallucinogenic effects or are quote-unquote psychedelic to the human experience, but we're coupling them together now because as a group they're extremely powerful and have the potential to make measurable impact on mental health and the mental health crisis in America and hopefully across the world.
Sure. So how do we look at this in the context of a lot of the substances you described are either Schedule 1 or Schedule 3 listed drugs that are illegal to possess and are illegal to cultivate in many circumstances. How do you reconcile that with the fact that you're building a business?
Well, we don't touch the plant. We're a media and events company.
Oh.
Right. So the politics of it and the scheduling and descheduling and decriminalization obviously has been worked on by groups like MAPS, High Times, and other, the Drug Policy Alliance, a ton of people over the last 30, 40 years. That will work itself out just like it did in cannabis and is currently with cannabis. So we don't touch the plant. Our main mission is to educate the public. There's so much wonderful research being done on psychedelic substances currently, much more than there ever was in cannabis, and yet to get a mainstream buy-in, we need to package this information and repackage this information in easy to consume bites for people to take on their day. And so that's what we're doing. We're here to demystify by synthesizing the information and making it enjoyable and arming people with the knowledge, because we believe knowledge is power.
Sure. I've been reading an increasing number of clinical studies by universities and those kinds of institutions where the evidence clearly is increasing that supports the idea that for conditions associated with psychology, like addiction, PTSD, anxiety, that these substances have real and measurable impacts for the good. Do you see a future where these plants and the substances that they produce are legal for consumption on a medical basis? Or do you see it where the future is coming where everything is legal for recreational or medical or religious or spiritual purposes? What's the road ahead look like from where you sit?
Ideally, all drugs become legal and we help to end the failed war on drugs. Do I think that's going to happen soon? Probably not. We're on a road to medicinal, thanks to MAPS and Johns Hopkins and other academic universities. The measurable effects on mental health, things like PTSD, is far-reaching what the current psychotherapy industry is achieving with cognitive behavioral therapy. We're talking like 80% effects on people recovering from things like PTSD, whereas traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, I believe a success rate is around 6%. So just take that in your mind for a second. We're talking 80% efficacy rate versus 6% in some instances. I'm not a psychotherapist. I just champion the work that they're doing. So ideally, we get to a place where all drugs are legalized, and then we self-regulate within our own municipalities as a result of educating the public about what these substances are, what the positives and negatives are potentially of consuming them. And then, of course, focusing on regulation around the quality of the substances that are being provided. Of course, in the medical space, especially with this FDA study on MDMA and PTSD, there are extreme regulations on the quality of the MDMA, for example, that is being administered to the patients. And a big issue with psychedelics and the misinformation on psychedelics and psychedelic drugs is that what people are consuming and having quote unquote bad experiences with aren't necessarily psychedelics at all, right? So if you go back to the 90s during the rave culture when people were getting hurt, most of the time those people were not consuming psychedelics. They were consuming things like fentanyl or trace chemicals that aren't psychedelics at all. So it's a game of marketing, right? So we're trying to fix what Dare broke, so to speak.
Sure. So is the evolution of psychedelics into mainstream consciousness and hopefully mainstream pharmacopoeia on the medical side, is that our pathway towards eliminating the risks associated with unknown production practices and ingredients?
Absolutely, I think so. It needs to be controlled in the way it is right now, as we're gathering the science about these things. So, absolutely.
Right. Okay. And so tell me, what Delic, as a media company, do you publish a magazine? How do we find out more about what Delic is publishing, what it's supporting?
Sure. So we're extremely happy to announce that we just launched Meet Delic, meetdelic.com, the first ever psychedelic wellness summit to be held in Los Angeles, May 2nd and 3rd, 2020. This is a time where we're bringing together the health and wellness industry with the psychedelic science and academic community in a extremely fun, award-winning art venue, like I said, in downtown LA, opening our doors to anyone who wants to come and learn practical information about Psychedelics 101. So meetdelic.com is the first place you should go. Also, our recent acquisition of the legacy brand Reality Sandwich, realitysandwich.com. There's over 11,000 pieces of information on that regarding consciousness, and most recently, guides that help direct people in a practical way through psychedelic substances. So realitysandwich.com.
Wow, very cool. All right, well, that's a great introduction to the company. So final question for you, Jackee, is all of this sort of evolving acceptance of psychedelics as a potentially medical platform, is that resulting in better access to psychedelics as a treatment option for those who need it, i.e. people suffering from PTSD, people suffering from anxiety, or is it still very experimental and hard to get to?
I'd say for the mainstream audience, it's still very experimental and hard to get to, unfortunately, with the exception of things like ketamine clinics and some ibogaine clinics. It's easier to find black market psychedelics than it is going the medical route, which is unfortunate. Creating access to these substances for people is our number one mission. So we're working with a bunch of people around the country, around the globe, to make it easier for people to access high quality, safe psychedelic medical experiences.
You bet. All right, Jackee, that's great. Thanks very much. We're going to come back to you, and I'll see you at Delic in May in Los Angeles. Send me an email on that if you wouldn't mind.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye for now.